This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, episode number 97.
I believe so. It's creeping up there.
Well, you're so right, Tim. How you feeling? How you feeling today, Timothy Seymour Dahl?
I feel fine.
We both had a bit of a physical slump until actually today.
Yesterday, I just my neck. I woke up with neck pain. This is why we don't need to hear my.
Well, the thing is, you know what cured us? Staying up till about 3 or 5 o'clock in the morning and doing what we do best. That is celebrating life. There
we go.
Only we can. Anyway, for those who are, and there's many of them out there. As a matter of fact, 180 motherfucking Republicans just voted against. Have they no soul? That's a ridiculous question. 180 Republicans just voted against the anti-Asian hate bill. Now, what is to not like in an anti-hate bill? Every Republican said no. Not a single Democrat said no. Jesus.
So I mean, because I don't know how, I don't read these bills that are always presented. So they're complaining that the Democrats snuck in some kind of other deal that they didn't, I don't, what was it? Or is it just like they wanted to do a new hate crime to prevent the target demographic of Asians?
Tim, I think it's simpler than that. I think they're just cunts. Now,
well, so the thing is, there is a direct parallel with the rhetoric that Trump was making and the hate crimes against Asians that went up. And so the more he said things like Kung Flu and the China virus, there was directly the crimes went up. And in fact,
it's continuing.
I think one of his secretaries, I think, what was her position? It's something to do with domestic terrorism and all stuff. And so she wanted to start including American terrorists, white ones, and he would just go off the handles when she would bring that up. And she's like, "Well, I'm not doing my job if I don't talk about this."
As Homeland Security has been saying for a few years now, the biggest threat to America is inside terrorism. And in lieu of what we all know happened a few months ago, and of course, the Republicans do not want. I don't know why they call it a 9/11 type commission. That was a complete fucking failure and fraud. But to investigate the insurrection January 6th, of course, none of the Republicans, some of whom even claim it didn't happen or they were just tourists. But today, the Capitol Police, much to the chagrin of the GOP, sent a very demanding letter saying a commission on January 6th must be held. And criminals responsible, including officials, must be prosecuted. We'll see how well that goes down.
I should have prepared for this one because I forgot. I didn't think you were going to bring it up. But the lawyer representing that guy on the storming of the Capitol, the guy that's with the Viking helmet and the fur, he's referred to as the something guy. I forget what the shaman.
Hang on, the shaman, but it should be the shamed man. Go ahead.
The lawyer said, "Well, my client is nuts," and that basically he's like off the scale with Asperger's, and basically says a lot of these people have some kind of condition, are on some kind of spectrum, and that basically.
Well, wasn't that one of the female lawyer who was trying to push for the big lie with her defense was, why would anybody believe me? She's a lawyer. I don't know. You don't even believe yourself. And by the way, the audit in Arizona is not going too well.
Oh my God.
It is such a freaking farce. And supposedly Trump claimed, all of the information was lost. Well, even the idiots he has in charge of it found what he claimed was lost. Hello, another charade.
Well, so going back to the Asian hate crimes, there was one I think yesterday in Hell's Kitchen. And oh boy, I was up near Times Square. I hadn't been around there in, I don't know, like 18 months. There are a lot of kind of dangerous, mentally ill people kind of walking through the streets. You're like, ugh, I don't want to be near that person. So this guy, this Asian guy was attacked by some shirtless maniac, and the guy bit off the guy's finger.
Wait.
Yeah.
Who bit off whose finger?
The crazy lunatic bit off the finger of this Asian guy that he just randomly attacked. He was just walking, midday, and he was attacked, and the guy's on the ground, and then he bit off his finger. So
all right, homeless, you're probably hungry, but biting off a finger?
Well, so yeah, that's what we're dealing with. So there's a lot of hate crimes going up. There's a lot of crime in general is going up in New York, and
a lot of it is this country has an immense mental health issue.
Oh yeah.
Not only amongst all of the people we know, but there's so many other levels of mental health disparity. It's kind of mind-boggling.
Well, speaking of Republicans, of course, this kind of Reagan, just hyper privatization of everything, cutting all social funding and all that stuff, and then of course making guns as accessible as ever. I wonder what's going to happen.
Wait. There was that one QAnon that said we should give every white person a gun, as if most of them don't have guns to protect them. Oh, damn it. All right.
Staying on the Republican thing, I guess one of Trump's biggest legacy victory things when he was in office, as we're starting to see now, it was getting stacking the courts. And so basically right now it looks like they're going to be just like we expected. They're going to be challenging all the abortion stuff.
Well, Tim, I have to cut in because you know what I always say. Free vasectomies for all my friends.
Well, yes, preemptive attacks. That's a preemptive attack.
Thank you very much. Well, you heard last night, you were here. I've started the Loud Girls.
Oh yes. The anti-Proud Boys are the Loud Girls. I think you could be the ringleader.
And who else, Tim, really? Come on. And the first thing is going to be free vasectomies, and we'll start practicing on all our friends. A little nip and tuck never hurt anybody.
Well, so this is, and you can take this, you can have all the credit for the Loud Girls as a ringleader. Of course, everyone's talking at full volume, so everyone's like freaking out, like, oh no, here they come. And so one of your defenses should be this kind of drone where you kind of make a whistle, and then they all in sync go like as loud as they can, like army. And then everyone's like holding their ears, like, oh no, they're attacking us.
Look. You understand, I promote screech alarms for all women as one of the best methods of self-defense. And also, women have actually started screaming in the face of creepy people that follow them. I think it's very good. I always say a screech alarm is better than mace. If you mace them, you might get maced. If you screech them, they'll never come back. All right. Now, I'm not paranoid because, first of all, I can scream louder than anybody and I have a screech alarm. But I want to quote, and this is kind of often quoted, 1964, before your birth, I believe. Yes. Harper Magazine article called, quote, "The Paranoid Style in American Politics." And it was written by Richard Hofstadter. And this is, quote, what he said in 1964. "American politics has often been an arena for angry minds. I call it the paranoid style simply because no other word adequately evokes the sense of heated exaggeration, suspiciousness, and conspiratorial fantasy. In using the expression paranoid style, I'm not speaking in a clinical sense, but borrowing a clinical term for other purposes. I have neither the competence nor the desire to classify any figures of the past or present as certifiable lunatics. In fact, the idea of the paranoid style as a force in politics would have little contemporary relevance or historical value if it were applied only to men with profoundly disturbed minds. It is the use of paranoid modes of expression by more or less normal people that makes the phenomenon significant. Of course, this term is pejorative, and it is meant to be. The paranoid style is a greater affinity for bad causes than good. 50 years ago. All Nothing's right. Changed.
Yep. No, not at all. I was a line, I'm not paranoid, but everyone thinks I am. All right.
Or I'll quote myself. The question isn't whether you're paranoid. It's whether you're paranoid enough. I'm not paranoid.
Well, going back to politicians, the Texas Democrats are courting Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. All right. Magic Mike. Hey, I want Magic Mike. I'll vote for him twice.
Well, they're courting him. They're like, well, whatever. Reagan was an actor. We're going to court him to be the governor of Texas because they're going to do anything they just want to get Greg Abbott out. That guy's a real head case.
At least McConaughey admits to playing the bongos nude. Can't fault a man for that.
Hey, yeah, you should run on that one. I mean, Greg Abbott, it seems like he just governs to be spiteful and contrarian. What a shithead. So yeah, that could happen.
There's so much of politics right now is just spite. Now I'm kind of happy, and we might have talked about this the last episode, but I'm not done with it because I'm really fascinated by this. And I'm wondering if you, as a sonic brutarian and genius, can't maybe figure out the next step in this. And you must understand I am talking about the Havana syndrome.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, let me do this. There have been over 130 incidences of unexplained brain injury, known as the Havana syndrome, among U.S. diplomats, spies, defense officials, most of them in the past few weeks. Now, what's interesting is, so the number that they've reported is 70 more than what they had previously acknowledged. The numbers are increasing. What's interesting is, this started it was first acknowledged in Havana in 2016 by CIA agents. And they were working in Cuba, and they described being bombarded by waves of pressure in their heads.
Sonic weapons.
Sounds similar to cicadas. By the way, they are coming back. It is the 17-year return.
Oh, yes, they are.
The sound of cicadas in their head, and they'd open the door, and it wouldn't be happening outside.
Oh, my God.
And also, they felt as if they were standing in an invisible beam of energy. Headaches, dizziness, a perplexing range of other symptoms. And so their brains were studied, and they determined that the injuries resembled a concussion without a concussion.
Yep.
Now, Tim, if anybody can make a similar sound through music, and it was Monty Gazzazza and maybe even Throbbing Gristle originally that talked about this. Monty Gazzazza, the grandfather of industrial music, hate as he does to even be acknowledged. Mary Bell, Child of Hell is her single, and before Throbbing Gristle. He had been talking about this years ago. This is nothing new, but it's happening now in the past few weeks, at the White House. And also, there were incidences the day of the 2020 election at the White House.
Sonic weapons are always, as a musician, they've always kind of fascinated me. And of course, they've come in different forms. They've been giving captains of these cruises these sonic weapons as a defense. The classic for years. The one of the famous trips is like the Egypt to South Africa, and so they've run into problems when they go by Somalia, where the Somalian pirates will maybe have attacked them. They'll have like a Boston whaler and a couple of machine guns and loot the place. So what they would aim these sonic weapons, I remember reading about this, where none of the passengers would hear it, and it would be wherever, not a mile, half a mile, I don't know how far. And at which point they could target like a laser these pirates, and they would just be like shitting themselves instantly.
Well, I mean, now when you say that, Tim, it's like I was just imagining you as a sonic defense my mouth is a sonic defense mechanism. But I remember, and I do not blame your bass, it's sometimes had the same effect on me, I have to say. I have had to evacuate the stage.
Oh, right. And the thing about, especially low frequencies, I mean, they travel so slowly, and that's why whales can communicate across oceans.
Well, it was a whale of an experience. The night I was in so much agony, my only thought was not vomiting on your head or your boxes. Unfortunately, the backstage had a toilet and a shower right next to each other.
Oh, that one. Oh, yeah, that show.
And if you recall, I think it was around the third song, I'm like, I'll be right back. I had to go I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming the pain and the cold. And I came back And once again, after the fifth song, I had to go out, do the duty, came back. But hey, the show must go on. We're show folk. It's what we do.
Yeah, I remember there was a shower backstage, and
luckily because I was. You heard the song.
The train was clogged with spaghetti. I mean, I remember that.
And I didn't even eat spaghetti. I'm just saying.
Was that Bob?
I was shooting out of both sides from agony. Anyway, I feel great. I feel great today.
Yeah. So going back to sonic weapons, because I remember reading this article about one of the developers of some of these technologies, and of course, just like a lot of military technology is eventually brought to market and used for whatever reasons, they've been trying to push. And of course, it's going to have to go through the Supreme Court. Basically, sonic weapons used for marketing. So as you're walking down the street and whatever is detecting your consumer habits on your phone, so you'll say you like Coca-Cola or something like that. So like a schizophrenic, you start hearing a voice like Coca-Cola half off in the store that you're about to walk by, and that we're all going to be bombarded. So it's sort of like billboards. We're going to have sonic billboards feeding into our heads, and that's basically where they want to go with this.
Tim, I'm going to go old school and stick to one of the best rock songs ever written by the Dead Boys called Sonic Reducer. I'll stick with that. By the way, I wanted to say chubby animal stories. I don't know why I suddenly thought of that, but
well, not a chubby one, but an interesting one happened. A man in Australia was snorkeling, and he's like, "Well, that fish, a mullet fish, that's what they call it." He's like, "That looks particularly different, strange." Upon closer inspection, it had a gold wedding band wrapped around the thing, and he's like, "What the hell's going on?" He took a photograph of it. Of course, the thing swam off, but he's like, "Oh, this poor little thing has someone's wedding ring on it." Then he's like, "You know what? This is a popular snorkeling zone, this reef over here." I don't know where it was, but probably near the Gold Coast would be my guess. Or maybe no, that had to be some popular zone. So
I read this story, but did he actually, now there's the fish with a necklace wedding ring.
He found the guy who lost it. He goes, "That's mine, mate." And that was
but what about the fish again? Did he go back and find the fish again?
He's basically the wedding band loser, literally. He fucking got together a troop, just like some kind of old school, like torch and pitchfork mob. Like, we're gonna hunt that thing and get my wedding band. And basically, the guy took photographs. Like, good luck with that one. It's gonna be a little difficult. So they're gonna try to go.
If it was me, I'd be happy with a picture of a ring around a fish's neck that wasn't killing the fish. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my animal story. Now going back to sonic weapons and all types of weapons. So now they are studying 2,200 protesters from last year's BLM and just police, anti-police, protests who've been exposed to nerve gases that were thrown into these crowds. And this woman, Britta Torgrimson O'Hario, she works at the Kaiser Center of Health Research in Portland, Oregon. She just started getting so many complaints by women saying, my menstruation is really screwed up and weird stuff's going on down there. And she's like, well, we got to look into it because they're all at these protests. Sure enough, 54% of women there have had really strange stuff with their cycle who've been exposed to this gas that police were unleashing onto legal protesters. One woman who gulped and inhaled quite a bit claimed she basically had her period within hours after inhaling this stuff. So they don't know if it's going to affect women's reproduction and blah, 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 but they're doing further studies on this basically military weapon that's been unleashed on our own citizens.
Well, that brings me back to the Loud Girls. We are going to develop, with your help, Timothy Seymour Dahl.
Can I be a male mascot of the Loud Girls? Because
you are going to invent a sonic tone that causes vasectomies without the usual snip and dip. I'm just saying, you know what, Tim? You want to work with me? You know what your job is. Saying.
I will develop, if you want, a laser bass tone that if it's aimed properly at certain males, their testicles will explode inside their scrotum immediately. So it's basically,
hey, perfect. You're hired. By the way, my voice has been known to either prevent an erection for 6 months or cause a non-stop erection for 6 months.
Oh, priapism. Oh, yes.
Depends on who the guy is. I'm just saying. I take no responsibility.
A voice that can make a priapism or make a permanent flaccid thing is powerful voice.
If that is not me, I don't know who is. I don't know. I think we should tie it up, Timmy, because nobody will be able to understand what I'm saying when I say your hair looks great today, Tim.
Mine does. Oh, thank you.
It does.
Maybe it's a good hair day, as they say. I don't know.
Well, we're both feeling a lot better than we were, but I think everybody took a dip a few days ago, and now we're on the uprise.
Do you have a exit?
Please, please, son, exit. No, the thing is, I'm never going away, so there is no exit.
How about a launch? Lydia, launch.
Look, you've had enough lunch for one day, and I think everybody else has too, but nonetheless, this is Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch Tim Dahl, episode number 97 with Gail Ann Dorsey. This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Gail Ann Dorsey. Hello, and great to talk to you, Gail.
Hello. Nice to be here.
You're in Paris right now?
I am in Paris. Yes, I am.
What's the feeling there? I mean, obviously vaccines are kind of slowly rolling out in mainland Europe, and France's numbers were kind of rough this year. What's the general vibe?
Well, it's still lockdown here. I think they're starting to open up one level next week or in a few days. I think on the 19th or something like that.
Okay, so lockdown it's like a curfew.
Curfew and all of the restaurants are closed, so it's kind of weird.
Ooh, not very Paris-y. Yeah.
Not at all. No restaurants. No.
Gail, have you been there the whole COVID experience?
No, I've been back and forth. My partner is here, so I spend time. I've been trying to be able to see her. It's been very difficult.
With logistics and just all that stuff. Is that difficult, or since your partner's there, they kind of just let you through?
It's been difficult. It's been difficult with border stuff and paperwork and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I've been here a couple of times. Well, I was here September through like almost up to Christmas. And then I've just been here since the beginning of April now. So I'm coming back to New York in July.
Where do you spend most of your time between Paris and, are you in Kingston?
I'm in Kingston. That's where I spend most of my time.
Pretty cool place. And I hear that Adele Bertay might be checking out Kingston.
Yes. She really likes it there. I've been there for a long time in that area, almost 25 years or so now, since the early 90s.
Wow. Well, yeah, I saw that because I was looking at your history, and you'd moved to Woodstock after, I don't know, you're probably touring profusely. You were living were you living in London before that, or?
Yeah, 11 years in London.
So would you have like a recording session at Bearsville or something? Like what opened you up at Woodstock?
Another great bass player I met while I was still in London, Sarah Lee, who was with the Gang of Four and B-52s. And Sarah was living in the Woodstock. She had been living there since the 80s. And I went to visit her there because I was thinking of going back to New York from London, but I hadn't decided yet. I really didn't want to be in New York City, but I wanted to kind of go back to the States. And then I found that area, which I didn't really know much about other than the history of Woodstock, even though the town of Woodstock is not where it happened, but that's where the mojo is still. It's like, that's the whole energy of Woodstock is still in the little town of Woodstock. So I went there and I thought this is a great sort of in between place to be close to New York City, which is why there's a huge artists and music community and acting and film and everything now in that area. Kingston, Woodstock, Saugerties, Hudson, all of that. It's kind of, everybody's kind of moving upstate. Especially now, I think.
You mentioned Gang of Four, who were an incredible band, and you played with them for a while. So you went from Philly, you started playing the guitar as a youngster, moved on to bass, went to London because as artists, we had to go I had to go to Europe. I had to go to London, where we might be wanted. And you pretty much hooked in quickly to a group of incredible people, including Gang of Four. Tell us a little bit about just arriving in London, the period you got there, and there you are with your bass. And by the way, was it difficult to get into London at that time?
Again, it was a little bit difficult. I had an English family that kind of helped me out with visas in the beginning. And then I was able to kind of get work stuff sorted out because I started getting more work. So it was not too difficult. I feel like I got there at the right time. Like I arrived at a great time. I got there in 1983. It was like summer of 83. And it took a little while, but by like 85, I was starting to meet people, get out, play, had my first sessions, first sort of taste of really working professionally in the music business. I got to do first recording session ever, which was on Boy George's solo album. He had done it. It was his first solo album outside of Culture Club.
Yeah.
And how did that even happen? Culture Club was pretty huge. You're new to London, 2 years in, and suddenly you're playing with Boy George. Amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. There was music in the pubs. That's that's what was amazing there. That was different from, I had left New York City. I was trying to get a record deal. It's where I met Adele Bertay. And we had done some stuff together in New York. It was just hard. And then I get to London, and like almost every pub has music, like on the Sundays or during the week. And so I met like kind of jazz players, people kind of playing like little jazz trios. I was involved in that. And
I read that like Ronnie Scott's, which was
Charlie Watts Big Band, which seems
legendary place and legendary band.
Yeah, that's how all that stuff kind of started. I just met people who were playing in the pubs. I went out, some friends were like, go and meet, go out and see, this is where music. So I met, you just kind of meet musicians, sax players, keyboard players, whatever. Through that, which was very much a kind of jazz, kind of soul scene that was going on there at the time, like Sade kind of thing. Yep. Sade was coming up, that kind of vibe was happening. So I was meeting a lot of musicians who were kind of playing that kind of music. I met a player who introduced me to, told me about this thing called the jazz. What was it called? The jazz. My goodness. It was actually a government run program to bring music into the communities, like community centers. So it was kind of like a small little, it was like a job. You kind of got paid, not a lot of money, but there was a lot of government subsidy before Thatcher took it all away.
Right. Classic.
I got there right in that, like when Thatcher was starting to kind of take a hatchet.
The Reagan world taking over.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Those two. I met a guy called John Stevens who was running this program that I got a job. He was a jazz drummer. He's passed away now. He was like kind of an avant-garde jazz drummer, and he was one of Charlie Watts's best friends. They had grown up together. And Charlie Watts, which I didn't know until that time, was a huge jazz freak.
Yeah.
He's like an aficionado. I mean, this guy
still is.
Yeah, well, exactly. So John Stevens was the one who kind of got me the gig singing for the Charlie Watts Big Band, because John was helping Charlie put his big band together.
Let me ask you, because you're from the Philly area originally, correct?
Yep.
The amount of incredible bass players that have come from Philly, including, even upright, Paul Chambers, Stanley Clark, Jamaldine Tacuma, even though Jocko, before he moved to Florida, I don't know if you want to count that.
Like Norristown, he was where I kind of went to high school,
So did you get any jazz experience then, or did that kind of come later?
That came later. It came a lot when I kind of got to London. I started to learn more about it. Wow. I mean, I like all kinds of music, so it wasn't like I was I never thought I don't consider myself a jazz musician, but at that time, I was growing and learning as a bass player, as a singer and everything. I would try anything. I still do. I still would go, if I have an opportunity to play something that I'm not familiar with, I'll give it a shot, because, I'm learning something that I can maybe use.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And Gail, you've played with such a diverse
it's huge
amount of people, but I want to go back to the origins of you saying you were influenced by one of my favorite songs. I think it was by Grand Funk Railroad, was it? And also Hendrix, who I also loved.
Of course.
And that's interesting that out of Philly, known for definitely music, but not that type of music, that of course you had kind of a rock and roll roots.
Rock and roll, and also the other side of that is the easy listening thing. I was into Karen Carpenter. I was into John. I love that music so much. And
you are shocked. You are shocking me. You are shocking me.
But well, I mean, I'm a radio freak for a start, which I still like love listening to the radio all the time. So my mother used to have a little AM radio on in the kitchen. You know, I mean, this is like the late 60s, early 70s when all that great AM, you know, all that stuff was on the radio. But like, I think guitar is my first instrument. That's my main love. Like the 6-string guitar was what I dreamed that I was going to be, you know, the next and most amazing guitar player. But I never kind of got as good on the guitar as I did on the bass so quickly. Like the bass was an accident. I just picked up the bass to work because everybody needed a bass player. And I wanted to start to make money playing music instead of just playing with my high school band or whatever. So I went for an audition when I was in high school for a top 40 band in the summer that was going to actually make money playing music instead of just playing at block parties or, you know, in the park or something on a Saturday. So, and I got the gig. So then I started playing bass, but I was like, oh, that's just a thing. But it didn't become serious for me as a bass player until I got to London. And then, there was really work to do. Like there was, you know, I met people, I got a session here, I got involved in a little bit, you know, just one thing. I was just in the right place at the right time.
It really seems like it opened up. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing led to another, and quite quickly, you know, and then even getting my own solo record deals as well that came in out of that, which I had been pounding the doors to do in the US, but it just wasn't going to happen because my music was a little bit diverse. It was like they couldn't pigeonhole it.
Especially that period in London, the music was diverse and successful. Yeah. I mean, in a sense, it almost mirrored the late 60s in America when top 40 music was so diverse, radical, different. And then in London, in those early to mid 80s, music, it had the same effect because of radio there, because it was far more liberal and all-encompassing. I'm talking like post-punk and anything beyond that from, and some of the people you've played with from Boy George, Tears for Fears. Yeah. And these were successful bands, and especially in the UK, they were also successful in America, but not as much. And then I guess your love of the easy listening, because you also played with like Indigo Girls, Sophie
Sarah Lee played for them too, right? Sarah played for the Indigo Girls as well.
Yeah.
So you two shared a lot of gigs.
I met her because I was really good friends with Louise Goffin, Carole King's daughter, who was living in London at the same time as I was. So she was kind of we had a band together at one point. We worked together with Brian Ferry. I had got a gig with Brian Ferry and I kind of pulled her in on that. We did a bunch of
What period was that for the Brian Ferry?
Brian Ferry was just before I moved back to New York. So it was kind of...
remember what album or what was he doing?
It was the Taxi album. Uh-huh. It was the album he did called Taxi. I can't remember what year that was now.
I still love the early Roxy music.
Yeah,
I saw them live when I was a teenager in Rochester, New York, and they were amazing. I still play Roxy music.
You're gigging, the pubs have live music you can gig. Were you on the social scene at all? Were you hanging out at the Blitz? I mean, you were hanging with like Boy George, but did you cross over or was it just more professional?
I played on his solo album. I think I did 3 or 4 songs that maybe didn't even make it on the album. You know, it's like it was just my first recording session ever, like professional recording session. I knew I was working with a drummer. So this is kind of how the chain goes with John Stevens, the drummer who got me this singing job. He had a son named Richie Stevens, has a son. Richie's still alive and well and playing drum, is also a drummer. But Richie was like a soul drummer, like one of the funkiest kind of R&B soul drummers. And he was working with Boy George. That's how I got that gig.
Ah, okay.
Richie, I started playing with Richie. John said, you know, and Richie was my age and we were kind of in the same kind of, he was my age. And John said, I have a son, you maybe he's got this record deal with Virgin. He's doing this thing with he had a black singer and they had this thing called Well Read, and it was like this kind of funk soul thing. And they had showcases that they had to do for the label. So I joined that and played bass for Richie's little band doing the showcases. And that's then Richie was like, I work with Boy George, so it's like one thing, each little thing kind of led to another thing. And then because Richie had this record deal for a while with Virgin, then they kind of saw me with him in the showcases, and they were like, wow, there's this Black woman who's playing bass, but she's in town, and so then they suggested, Virgin Records said, hey, would you like to do some TVs with Donny Osmond? Because they had Donny Osmond on Virgin. Okay. He was making this like 80s comeback with his leather jacket.
Oh boy.
Gail, you are so all-inclusive. Even a Mormon ex-pop star is not against your musical morals.
Well, I just,
you love to play.
I was going for it, I was like, hey, why not?
All right, fill us in on Donny Osmond. Is there any dirty underwear in his laundry or not? Is he
not really.
I'd rather get into Marie Osmond's undies, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I didn't get Marie.
Well, no, there's still time, honey. There's still time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I don't know. She's so cute in those commercials she makes. I mean,
oh boy.
No kidding.
Oh.
So that was a brief thing. It was just doing we did some TV. I did a bunch of he had put out a new record or something on Virgin, and I did all the TV spots. The little pre-recorded, miming. I did play bass on the track that we used to use when we would do the TV things. They kind of redid the tracks, but we did these like shows live at the Palladium and whatever, like these little TV things.
Where were you living in London at the time when you were working with these people?
I lived in Brixton.
Didn't everybody?
Yeah.
People have no idea who haven't been there. Because
Electric Avenue.
It was intense.
Avenue on a Saturday.
It was intense. Brixton was intense. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of, it's not even really an equivalent to the Lower East Side in the late 70s, but it kind of is, as far as the people who were so creative, the you had this same imbalance of poverty, genius, destruction, danger.
Yeah, you did.
It was interesting. I was in London from 80 to 82, and a lot of my friends lived in Brixton. I lived in Barron's Court near the cemetery there, and Barry Adamson was my neighbor.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly.
An amazing musician.
You were there for the riots then, like the sort of Brixton riots were kind of around that time.
Yeah, well,
I got there in 83. And
I was in a few places during the riots. But anyway, Gail, did you meet Adele Berthet on the Tears for Fears tour?
No, I met her when I left college. I went to film school at Cal Arts for like a year and a half. And from 80 to 82, I went to New York City, dropped out of school and went to play music again. And that's when I met Adele. Working in a record store on 8th Street.
Amazing.
Were
you both on the Tears for Fears tours together?
No, she did it first. I think, if I recall, I probably met Roland through her, really, because she was they had done the tour with Alita Adams, songs, the Seeds of Love tour. That was a huge tour. So she worked when both Roland and Kurt, both members of Tears for Fears, it was still the band. And I remember going to a party, like I think maybe it was around Christmas time, with Adele and at Roland's house in London. He had a little soiree for Christmas with the band and people. And so I think I met him then. And then like a year later or whenever it was, he contacted me because he split up with the other guy. Like they had a fight or something, like they weren't speaking or whatever happened. I really don't know.
Oh yeah, because he plays bass also, right?
That's right. So he asked me, did I want to replace Kurt basically as a bass player? And then I could do some singing. I could do Alita's Woman in Chains and all that kind of stuff. I
wanted to ask you about that because you do double duty a lot. You'll get a gig, and if there's a singing part that was, well, in the case of Under Pressure with David Bowie, you do the Freddie Mercury. And this is where I'm tying it together because your first solo album, another person who does that a lot is Nathan East, who actually produced your first solo album. And he's brought it when he does like the Phil Collins gig. He has to do the Philip Bailey part and singing.
Right. Yeah.
And so was Nathan, did you ask him to produce your first album, or was he like suggested by Warner Brothers, or how did that work?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I had got my first record deal, and Nathan, by the way, was born in Philadelphia.
Oh, he's another one.
He moved to LA or San Diego when he was 14.
Yeah, San Diego, because didn't he have a legacy music family, and he studied with Bertram Turetsky down at UCSD, right? Who said you're a virtuoso, go for it, kind of thing.
Exactly, but I didn't know he was from Philadelphia till he told me. But so he was also born in Philadelphia. Nathan was, at the time, he was like with Clapton,
right,
playing with Clapton and doing a lot of stuff and being in London a lot. And I was his first production that he ever did as a producer.
Okay.
I'm sure he did other things since then, but basically I was trying to think of a producer for my record. And I went into the office of my A&R guy one day at Warner's, and Nathan was there. He was going around to the record labels in London because he was interested in producing artists. And so he wanted to know if he could he was looking for a gig as a producer, so that he was letting people know he was out there and he was interested. And so, of course, he came in and they were like, well, we have someone who's a bass player, singer, maybe, and that's kind of how we hooked up. So I said, God, I was a huge fan of him. I loved his session work, his stuff with Whitney Houston and
everyone. He's played with everybody.
Played with everyone, Ricky Lee.
Well, then you became the person that played with everyone, Gail. So what's some yeah, you kind of, he was your hero, and there you went. What's interesting is, like so many of these things, it is not really who you know. It is about being in a certain place at a certain time.
Yeah.
That connections are formed. Was the Tears for Fears the longest tour you were on until that point? And how long was that?
Let me think. Yeah, it was the most kind of extended thing that kind of went into working, because I ended up going on into doing the tour for Elemental and then going straight into Raul and the Kings of Spain, which was an album that was kind of formed on the road. He was starting to write that stuff while we were out on the road. And so that kind of was an extended thing that, yeah, I would say that was the longest kind of thing. And then Bowie called.
Did you fall on the floor?
Yeah, I did. Well, at first I thought it was somebody playing a joke on me, but then I realized it was really him on the phone.
Let's just go back to your solo album for 1 second, because I don't want to throw that under the rug right now. So you're finally gonna do your first solo record. How long did that take? And was the end result what you wanted? And by the way, when's the next one?
Oh boy. I'm working on that one now.
I thought so. Go ahead.
Well, it was hard. I was 24 or 25 at the time, and it was Nathan's first production. I don't have great memories of the session because of just my kind of being scared and intimidated and record label shit coming in, all the sort of with this and checking in, where's the single and So I was kind of a little bit overwhelmed. I remember a few times kind of crawling under the desk, just trying to like, what's happening?
Well, also, it's not like, you're thrown right into the big league. You had history before, but suddenly this is big time.
Yeah, well, this was my chance, my dream to get a record done, to get all these demos I had been writing.
And the thing is, you achieved making a solo record, but we know how record companies behave. Where's the single? How much is it costing? What are you going to do? How are we going to pigeonhole you?
Right. That was the issue. Yeah,
heartbreaking.
Came down to that. It really came down to that in the US. The first record did okay. I didn't make any overnight sensation or anything, but it had great reviews. It had really like 5 stars in Q. Everything it had a really good review. So I felt quite proud of that, at least that, the journalists felt that it was something substantial.
But, a great point I want to make is this. Even if you have been associated with people more famous than you are, and you're getting 5-star reviews, and you're on a major record company, a major record label, and you have promotion, it's always a fluke. It's luck of the draw. It doesn't make any sense who becomes the token that takes the crown. It doesn't matter how talented or good you are, how great your songs are.
No, yeah, it's true. It's very true. It is like winning the lottery in a sense. It's like, who knows what's going to be
David Bowie called, and then that is kind of the lottery, honey.
Well, I'll say.
So he calls you, and what era, what period was that? What's the first things you did with Bowie?
I started with him in '95. We did the Outside tour.
Which, by the way, that's kind of an overlooked record, and it's one of my favorites post Diamond Dogs. And I think, I don't know, and maybe you don't even know this, I think a lot of it was based on the books of Derek Raymond.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, I'm just making that reference because I've read the books and I know the album. So I'm just saying he's a British crime writer. And the same way that Diamond Dogs was based on 1984 by George Orwell, I do believe Outside is based on the writing of Derek Raymond. That was a really weird album after he'd been making kind of more commercial stuff. I mean, from the commerciality, and I know you loved Young Americans. That's when I caught him off because I was a Bowie freak from the beginning. But to his low period, and then Outside was it was an outside record that kind of was overlooked in the States, especially.
Oh, completely. It was weird. And maybe that's why it was this kind of, we toured that album with 9 Inch Nails. So it was like
that's right.
Double, when he called, he said, I'm going to be doing this tour. It's going to be 6 weeks. We're going to go out. We're going to play with 9 Inch Nails, and we're going to go. We were first, like they were the headliners.
That's funny.
Even though it was never billed like that. It was more like a double bill. It wasn't like one was better than the other.
I really respect that because it never matters what time I'd prefer to go on at 9 o'clock in the morning if I could. It doesn't matter who goes on when. And by the way, going on last, not much time after that to do what you want to do, which is party. But going on first, second, who cares?
We did a tour in 2000, I think, with Moby was the headliner. And I remember saying to David, I said, what? Moby is headlining? Like, why is Moby? And he said, trust me, the best spot is the one we have. You want to go on before these acts because by they come on at 10.
Tiring.
The audience is tired. Like they've burnt out. We will have blown them out, and it's like then we've had our evening and we can get on, we can get a good night's sleep. And,
Plus, Gail, I never considered you nor David Bowie a bit of a fluffer for anybody. Actually, exactly. As we all know, foreplay can sometimes be better than the main acts. And
there you go.
call it what you will. Call it what you will. Right? You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. So the 9 Inch Nails thing was awesome. It was like this cool like mesh of stuff too. Like we would do our set, and then like 1 or 2 members of Bowie's band would go away, and somebody from 9 Inch Nails would take their place. Like the guitar would come in, and someone, and then we would do a 9 Inch Nails song. Like it was
Hurt. You would do Hurt, right? Hurt, which is an amazing song.
I know, right? And then by the time 9 Inch Nails was ready to take their set, we would have all gone off. So it was never it was never a black stage. It wasn't like, okay, now we're gonna go get popcorn or whatever. And 9 Inch Nails will be back. It was just continuous.
Gail, at that point, because we know the history of most mainstream rock stars that start out at one way. Everybody's got to go to the bottom of the bucket where all the fun lies before they come back to the top and realize they only got so much time. I guess Bowie was straighter than he was for a lot of his career by that point. But my question really is, how did you manage to keep your mind, your health, your sanity, and not fall into the Moby hole, who, by the way, we're talking to on Monday? How did you manage not to fall into the hole that so many people have?
I don't know. I mean, I like to smoke a little weed, and that's about all I do. But but that kind of keeps me a little like calm, But I don't know. I just I try and be healthy. I try and be as healthy as possible. Like
you got work to do, honey. You got work to do.
Yeah, and the music, like, kind of, that's what I focus on. That's what feeds me and kind of keeps me well. This past year has been really hard because I haven't had my medicine. Like,
we know exactly what you're saying.
And for me, it's like live music. It's not so much.
Right. Well, I wanted to ask you about that with live music because through all your experience, and it's a technical question, wedge monitors into the in-ear monitor world, backing tracks versus full live, like what percentage as you're seeing this evolve and people wanting this consistent, especially with the arena level, they want this consistent sound every night. Did you see the backing track the percentage of live to backing track, that ratio changed throughout the years? Is it consistent? And so you kind of feel like you're doing karaoke sometimes a little bit.
Exactly.
And you know what I say? And I say to some of my guys my buddies who do like the top session stuff themselves, this is the analogy. It's sort of like a commercial airline these days is essentially a drone, and the pilot's there in case a problem goes down.
Yeah, right.
And so it's like, if you're a pro musician, you're really good, but it's becoming more like, okay, I'm there just to make sure it goes smoothly, but it's kind of set in its own way. It's moving in its own way. It's gonna take off and land in its own way. How does that feel existentially for you? Is that a hard thing, or is that?
It's hard. Because I feel like being a part of shows like that is like cheating the audience. Like I feel like I'm doing something that I don't, still happy to be playing, but it's just sort of like, I feel more like a kind of not a sympathy or empathy, or I don't know what the word would be, but I feel something for the people who are watching, because
nobody wants to be a puppet on stage.
No, and also they're getting an experience that's like, there's nothing like live like there's beauty in the imperfection as well, and I think that's what I think people don't mind.
Hallelujah, yeah, it's rock music. It's rock music,
and it's the stuff that's not so perfect, that's emotional and that touches people, and because you can feel more connected to that.
Well, also the audience does not know when a mistake happens. Trust me, Tim and I have had this conversation. We work with a perfectionist, and I'm like, it's fucking rock and roll music. There are no mistakes. Audience does not know. Nobody has every note memorized. They don't care. What counts is the emotion.
Emotion is everything.
But I always say that when I see like newer rock bands, I'm like, well, why does this not feel like rock and roll? And the thing is, like, if I went to an arena show in the 80s or whatever, it sounded like shit 80% of the time. So it's like, it's like riding these giant amps. It's like riding a Bronco. And can you control this thing? Can you handle it? And that's part of the dance. And if everything's so perfect and refined every night, it's kind of killing the spirit of rock and roll, I feel like.
Totally. And it is karaoke. It's like, you might as well just be listening to, you're listening to the record, basically, coming out of really good PA system or whatever. And that's about it. And then people standing.
Celebrity.
We all know how boring that is. Now let's talk about somebody who's a pretty exciting live performer and covered American Woman, one of my favorite songs. What about the Lenny Kravitz experience? I mean, he seems like a pretty hard, raunchy rock and roller. Was that fun? Or did you also have a lot of fun?
That was a lot of fun. Yeah. Lenny in a great band, and he is a great performer.
Didn't he have a female drummer for quite a while too? Does he still have her? Oh, she was amazing. I forget her name. She was amazing.
Yeah, Cindy Blackman. Yeah. She's married to Carlos Santana now.
I didn't know that. Okay.
She actually came back for one of our tours. We did a tour in 2014, and he brought her back in for that tour, and it was really cool to find. I'd never met her before. We were supposed to do a band together with myself, Cindy, Nona Hendricks, and Felicia Collins.
Oh, wait! What do you mean we're supposed to? There's still time, honey. Still time.
Yeah, we had meetings, but Cindy was always busy. She never made it. And I did some stuff with Felicia and Nona. We got together and jammed in the city a little bit. But I think Cindy had moved to LA or something. So it was kind of hard for us to actually make it happen. But
I'm sorry, I have to plant this in your head, Gail, because I planted it in Adele Bertay's head. I'm like, her book on LaBelle is so great. It's so
I know,
beautiful.
I have it here. I'm going to start it.
You won't be able to stop. But I'm saying, why don't the two of you write a new LaBelle hit? You both got it in you.
True.
I'm just putting it out. You might still have a few more weeks in lockdown in Paris. I'm just putting it out. Something to shoot for. I'm waiting. All right. Come on, baby.
That's a really great idea.
Well, thank you. I'll take 10% of that when it makes number one, at least on my radio.
There you go. But yeah, no, Lenny was great. He's definitely had the old vibe going on there. I mean, we had a few little bit of support sometimes, so especially on some of his newer material, because he's been doing very pop, getting more pop and stuff, the album. But when we played like the old stuff, it was really, Are You Gonna Go My Way? It's just like full on rock and roll. It was very exciting to do that stuff.
And that there's so little hard black rock music. I mean, where is it? First of all, there's very little hard rock music of any sort right now, but especially especially something like Lenny Kravitz. There's the Bell Rays. I don't know if you know them. There's a great band out of Chicago called the Cell Phones. Terrible name, but great. But
are the Bad Brains up in Woodstock?
Yep. Yeah, they are.
Who are you still waiting to get the call from?
Yeah, what's your dream gig right now?
There's one person I always wanted to work with, and is Annie Lennox.
Do you ever meet her? I mean, being in England in the 80s?
I met her once on some big show that I was doing with Bowie. It was like a kind of, I don't remember what it was, something in London, like at Wembley Arena.
Well, she did Under Pressure. She did the singing duo with, so you guys have shared that gig.
Exactly. We shared that gig. And I was a huge Eurythmics fan. I mean, her and Grace Jones were like my two biggest inspirations for my own, in terms of just me feeling like I can be who I am. Like I want to be, I'm not going to try and be like R&B or something because I'm Black, which was the whole thing. That was the whole thing in America. It was like, well, your music's not really Black music, but how do we
pigeonhole it? Yeah.
How are we going to put you like where we, whatever, all that shit. Seeing Annie Lennox and, her flaming red hair. And I remember taking like mushrooms or something and going to see her at the Lyceum Strand. And I was watching it. I was in the front row with the Eurythmics and I thought her hair was actually fire.
Oh, amazing.
It was like this whole trip. So yeah, no, I just love her music, and I just something of her sensibility. And when David asked me to do Under Pressure, I remember him coming into the dressing room. We were still on the 9 Inch Nails tour at that time. And he came into my dressing room and he was like, do you remember when I did the Under Pressure with Annie Lennox? And I was like, do I remember? I was there. I was in London at the time. And he said, well, I'm thinking of doing something like that. And, maybe would you want to duet that with me? And I thought at the time, I was like, well, who's going to play the bass? We don't have another bass player in the band. And he was like, you're going to play the bass. And I was like, and sing it at the same time. And he just like gave me he had a great sense of humor, a classic British kind of dry sense of humor. And he just looked at me and he said, I'll give you 2 weeks.
Singing and playing bass or singing and playing drums, because the time you have to keep the time. So it's so much harder than, sitting on the piano or strumming a guitar. You really have to work out some of the contrapuntal rhythm stuff. So hats off to you. Going back to Annie Lennox, did you ever end up working with Dave Stewart?
No, I didn't. Sarah Lee did, actually. My friend Sarah Lee, bass player.
Yeah.
She did some stuff with him. He was producing something. He was in Woodstock at the time, I think. But I didn't meet him then. I never met him.
Oh, interesting.
Tim, I have to cut in and say,
please,
now that I know an ultimate challenge for you, I'm sorry I don't have any songs I need backup singers on, but I think I'm gonna you put something in my mind.
Oh boy.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Gail. I'm gonna dedicate that one to you, because I always like to give Tim Dahl a challenge. He rises to it every time. Yes, he does.
Or what gigs are on hold or were canceled in 2020?
Well, Lenny, we had a big world tour that was coming up, and I was actually here in New York then when it all kind of started. And then I got back to New York. I came back to New York in time to be ready for rehearsals for Lenny. So I get back, and then I got 2 weeks, I'm getting packed, and then I get an email. Well, rehearsal's going to be 1 week now. And then rehearsal's going to be canceled, but we're still going to New Zealand, okay? Because we were starting in Australia.
Okay.
So we'll get there, and then we'll do, and then as each week went by, everything just closed down.
Yeah,
we were lucky because we had Retrovirus had been to Australia and did the last show in New York before it closed down. We were very lucky. That was always good to go to Australia or New Zealand. Yes,
I know. I was so bummed because I love going there, because you don't do it that often. I just finished working with 2019 with the National. I've been singing with them, which. Oh, that was just such a great experience.
So you're not playing bass with them, just doing the singing.
Just singing.
Okay.
Just singing. I sang on their album that's called I'm Easy to Find. And then after that, I was invited to Wisconsin to do
Garbage. Wisconsin? Were you playing with Garbage?
No, with Justin Vernon of Bon Iver.
Oh, okay.
Only there, but Justin Vernon does a festival in Wisconsin every year in Eau Claire, which is where he's from.
Oh, I know Eau Claire. My late aunt, who I say I got the gig with Lydia because she reminded me or set me up for that. My late aunt lived in Eau Claire. Hard drinking city. Oh boy.
Yeah, I didn't experience that, but I went there for like a week to be part of the Eau Claire festival that he does.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a mini I don't know what you call it, not really a Woodstock, but it's kind of like he brings in different artists, and then all week we perform with each other, or we do shows around the city. So one is like in the auditorium of an old Mormon Odd Fellows church, and one is in a school, one is and it's all within walking distance, so people are kind of walking around. So it was really, really fabulous. And Ani DeFranco was there, and
Buffalo.
Yeah, we did like a Prince tribute, and it was a great week. And then I came and was getting ready to start with Lenny again, and that's so.
So what's coming next? Do you even know what's on the horizon? Because I mean, especially in France right now, they don't even know what's really going down at the moment. It's still locked down.
Yeah, still locked down for now. I'm hoping I have some work coming up with Donnie McCaslin, who is the sax player from Bowie's last album. I've been doing a few little things with him in his own band. I did some recordings with him on singing stuff only. I did some vocals on his last couple of records. And so that he's got some shows coming up that I'm hopefully going to be a part of. There's a French artist here that I might be doing some touring with next year. Not anything for the rest of
So the Lenny Kravitz tour wasn't just postponed, it's full on canceled?
Full on canceled for now. I think I haven't really been in touch with him much, but I heard he's been doing movies, and and I don't know when he's going to kind of.
Nobody knows what's going on anywhere with anything about that. So, but I see what's in your future, Gail. I see the Annie Lennox. I see the new song for LaBelle. They need one. I see that, and your new songs.
That is my main goal of this year, is to do my own stuff again, like to just at least get that more in the forefront, because it's been a long time.
With Bowie passing and then this year off, it kind of seems like it's the red carpet's rolled out for all this stuff in a weird way.
That's what I feel like. I want to take advantage of that before who knows what happens after that. But yeah, that is.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
No, we don't know.
We don't know, but you know what? We never did know, really.
Exactly. we never did know.
I think the priority right now is everybody is coming out almost, maybe somehow, sometime, out of the COVID fog, out of the pandemic, out of the hell that was America for the past 4 years. That but we're really like I feel like the 17-year cicada just coming out from under, but we never knew. We never really know. And what's really important in this time, especially I think, is don't take any day for granted, because even if you're just reading a book, not reading a book, going to the park, not going to the park, watching TV, but lie down, doing nothing. Sometimes we need to do nothing just to regenerate. And I think it's really hard for musicians that have had a life of being on the road and doing things so proactively all the time. And then it's like coming off of any tour, you kind of hit the brick wall and you're like, huh, what the hell? But I think it's time to be over what the hell, and it's time to be into what the hell ever. Whatever.
Yeah, that's very well put, Lydia. I agree.
I'm right there. I mean, what the hell ever. And the thing is, we just, we can't be down right now. We got to be up, even if it's up in ourselves. Nothing wrong with that. Be up in yourself.
I heard that. Right on.
When you want to get up in me, honey, I'm right here. I know we're only 3,000 miles away, but you know what I'm doing. I flirt. I flirt with everybody. I'm just scandalous that way. Anyway, it has been great talking to you. You have done incredible stuff in your life, and more is to come.
And thank you for inviting me.
This has been a pleasure.
When you're in Kingston, we're visiting. That's all I can say.
You got it. Yeah, Adele should be there soon, I hope.
Well, she says she's stopping at my house and coming up to Kingston at the end of August. So
right.
we'll be in the mix. Awesome. I can't think of anything else because we cover just not how we cover everything. We covered a lot. There's still a lot to cover. Thank you so much.
Thank you.